Good evening, viewer. Welcome to our Glory Globe TV. Here's the breaking news. Yes, again, Xi Jinping has had a busy couple of weeks. Since last month, the Chinese leader has hosted heads of state and government chiefs from Spain, Singapore, Malaysia, France, and the European Union. An unusual pace of diplomatic activity that comes as countries look to Beijing as the global economy sputters in the wake of the pandemic and war in Ukraine. On Friday, that list grew to include Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who is expected to sign a host of bilateral deals with Xi, and like several of the leaders before him, arrives with hopes of making progress towards ending Russia's war in Ukraine. But for Xi, this revolving door of visiting leaders making the trip even as China has refused to condemn the Russian invasion is also an opportunity to assert his vision for a global order not dictated by American rules and push back against perceived threats. That's especially urgent for the Chinese leader now, observers say. 3 years of scaled back diplomacy due to China's strict COVID-19 controls coupled with economic challenges, entrenched competition with the United States and rising European concern about Beijing's foreign policy have left Xi under pressure to act. Chinese leader, yes, they believe it is time now for China to make its strategic plans, said Li Mingjiong, an associate professor of international relations at Singapore's Nanyang Technological University. A potentially good outcome is to weaken American alliance. So that's why we are seeing quite strenuous efforts made by Beijing to try to stabilize and improve relations with European countries, and also to try to improve and strengthen cooperation with emerging economies, he said. As world leaders return to Beijing despite international concerns over the growing China-Russia relationship and Beijing's intimidation of Taiwan, Xi has used the opportunity to thread his conversations with veiled criticism of the US and keywords that signal Xi's own view for how to reshape global power. Speaking to Singapore's Lee Hsien Loong late last month, Xi stressed that Asian countries together should firmly oppose bullying, decoupling, or severing industrial and supply chains, while he urged Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim to resolutely resist the Cold War mentally and block confrontation. To Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez that same day, he wanted that the sound development of China as well as European Union relations requires the EU to uphold strategic independence according to readouts from the Chinese side. Beijing has watched uneasily as the war in Ukraine has driven the US and its European allies closer. Now analysts say playing up its economic partnership and exploiting differences between countries on the two sides of the Atlantic is key. When French President Emmanuel Macron arrived in Beijing last week, Xi drew comparison between China and France, both major countries with a tradition of independence. He said, and firm advocates for a multipolar world or a world without a dominant superpower. After a day of meeting in Beijing, Xi met Macron in the southern commercial hub in Guangzhou to continue an informal conversation, sipping tea and listening to the plucked melodies of traditional Chinese music before a state dinner. Macron, who has long advocated for Europe to develop an independent geopolitical policy and defense capabilities that need not rely on Washington, appeared receptive. Yes, he released a 51-point joint statement with China outlining cooperation on areas from nuclear energy to food security, and told reporters traveling with him that when it comes to the US-China rivalry, Europe must not be caught up in crises that are not ours, which prevents it from building its strategic autonomy according to a Politico interview. Macron's comments have sparked backlash in Europe and the US, but analysts say they were likely seen as a Trump in Beijing. Everything that can weaken the US, divide the West and move countries closer to China is good for Xi, said Jean-Pierre Cabestion, a professor of political science at Hong Kong Baptist University. Hence, Macron's trip is seen in Beijing as a major victory. BN Report, Globe TV, Delhi, India.